Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Fatherless Sons. My name is LaShawn Wiley, and I am your host, and this is episode 117. Under today's episode, Building Your Empire, we'll be talking about why saving is a mistake. Under Couch Time, we'll talk about how opposites do not attract. And stick around towards the end, and I'll reveal whose today's episode Fatherless and Famous is. So stick around for that towards the end. Okay, so let's dive right into building your empire, where we like to help you build your empire with some great knowledge and great information on how to do so. And we are going to talk about why saving is a mistake. And me as a banker, you would think that my advice would be to save, but actually it's the opposite of that. As a private banker, I have seen, very successful, wealthy people, and they didn't get there by saving. So one thing I'll just say right off the bat, you cannot save yourself to financial independence. You cannot save yourself to being wealthy. Saving is a tactic that you should really focus on after you build your wealth, after you build your empire. So if you're building your empire, you're going to have to take some ownership of income generating assets. And in order to obtain those assets, you have to spend, not save, just the opposite. So buying these income generating assets and owning these assets is what's going to take you from being broke to being wealthy and financially independent. A lot of people who tell you on the internet that you should save, and not just on the internet, you'll hear older people, maybe in your family, they all tell you to put your money in the bank and save. A lot of times they'll say that because they're already at the preservation stage of their wealth, and they know that that's key for them to keep their wealth, but they're not really talking about what's going to help you build wealth. So instead of asking a person for advice on how to preserve wealth, you should be very deliberate in saying, how did you get where you are? How did you build wealth? How did you become financially independent? And then they'll start diving into more details of, if they're candid with you, that is, they'll start saying, well, this is what I did. This is what I spent my money on. This is the risk that I took. It may be a good idea to even ask them about their failures along the way. Because for every entrepreneur out there who has found success, I'm sure they can tell you about a lot of ventures that actually failed. If they found one large success, they can tell you probably 5 to 10 things that they tried that simply did not work. And that's part of being an entrepreneur. So get used to failing so that you can learn how to succeed. So here's a couple of other reasons why I believe saving is a huge mistake. When people that don't have the right mindset, don't have the wealth building mindset, and they're seeing money the wrong way, they're saving that money only to spend the money because they have the wrong mindset. And we talked about this before on the channel. Money serves three purposes. It's either to pay bills, to buy things, or to make more money. So if you already have the wrong mindset of paying bills only with money, and that's the main purpose of money, or buying things with money, then when you save money and you save up, save up, save up, after a few months, you're going to spend it on either bills or buying something. I can guarantee you that that's what you're going to spend the money on. And that might help you sleep better to know that you have that money to spend on those things. But if you have the right mindset, which is the last item, the last reason and purpose for money, which is to make more money. If you know that the main purpose of money is to make more money, then saving goes against that. So unless you're getting paid high interest on your money, and most Americans out there are not making any money on the money that they save in their savings account at their bank. So if you really want to make your money work for you, think about putting that money in a CD. Think about asking your bank for a higher interest rate if they'll give it to you. And they may not put it in place permanently, but maybe they will. It depends on where you bank. You need to ask. Or using that money in some type of investment where it can earn you some money, or spending that money on some type of income generating asset that's going to make you some money. But just sitting on a pile of money like Mick Scrooge, that's not going to help you. It's not going to take you to financial independence, and it's not going to take you to wealth. It just doesn't work that way. Now, a lot of people, like I said, on the internet, they'll say save, and they are kind of pandering to you when they just suggest, oh, you should save your money. And this is what I mean by they're pandering to you. Saving your money makes you feel good. And when they say to you as advice to save, they know for some that's going to make them feel good. And they're going to say, wow, that person knows exactly what they're talking about. While on the flip side of that coin, for some, saving is an impossible task. They just don't have the discipline to save. And they beat themselves up and blame themselves for not finding success because they can't save. They don't have the discipline. So that person pandering to you that says save your money, and then you know that you can't save, you beat yourself up. You still admire the person telling you to save because you get the idea that they have the discipline to save and you don't. So they must know what they're talking about, and they must have discipline that you do not have, so they are better than you. So you're like tricking yourself out, and the person that's giving you this crappy advice, they win regardless of if you're the saver or if you're the person who cannot save. They still win, and they know this. So don't fall for that, and like I say, I'm here to just give you the truth. Saving is for suckers. Don't save. Use your money to make more money. Well, let's dive right into our next segment, which is couch time. And in today's episode, Couch Time, I wanted to talk about how opposites do not attract. And I know a lot of people hear that famous saying, opposites attract, opposites attract. And I'm here to tell you that that's not a long-term thing. I mean, if opposites attract, they only attract temporarily, only for the short duration, short time. And we're talking about if it's like a boyfriend, girlfriend that'll last, that'd be nice and cool for a short period of time, a couple of months. But after that, if you're looking for something long lasting and a longer duration, then you need to understand that it's not opposites that attract. You find that curious and exciting at the beginning, but after a while that fades. When I used to be a life coach, I used to coach my clients on this actual fact that it's not that opposites attract like that you should be focusing on. So a lot of times when my clients would meet someone and they'll say, "Oh, this person is totally opposite of me. They're so messy and I'm so organized and they're the yin to my yang." I worry, as soon as I hear all of those things because I understand how temporary that can be and how volatile that can be for long lasting relationships. Now, healthier, longer lasting relationships are based on like attracting like. This is why you'll see some couples that are together for a long period of time, or even friends who are friends for decades. It's because they have so much in common. They have the same idiosyncrasies. They have probably the same political views. They may have same philosophical views or religious views. Some of those core parts of their personality will either be compatible or very similar or alike. They won't be in stark contrast with each other. And if it's a friendship or a relationship where their core values are in stark contrast with each other, that friendship or that couple in that relationship, they understand and understood over time how to allow each other to have their own lane and do that without judgment or without criticizing it. Now that's rare to find. Like I say, the majority of your friendship or relationship is not going to be spent on the things that you don't have in common. A majority of the time that you spend together talking, hanging out, and etc., that's going to be built around the things you have in common, not the things that you don't have in common. This is also really important to understand because a lot of people will complain about the kind of people that's in their life, whether they say, I have a lot of negative people in my life, or I have a lot of people that are not very successful in my life. Well, the reason you have a lot of negative people or unsuccessful people in your life is because you're negative and you're unsuccessful. And I know that is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. When you begin, like, this is a tough one to swallow, but bear with me on this one. When you realize the negative things in your life are actually coming from you, that is a hard thing to really digest and comprehend, because once you understand that all of the negative things that are in your life is because you're attracting those negative things into your life. Like attracts like. So if you find yourself always around negative people, Look at yourself. Look in the mirror. If you find yourself around nothing but unsuccessful people, look at yourself. Look in the mirror, okay? And just all the things that you don't like, think about the people you hang around and spend most of your time with. This could be a spouse. This could be a family member that's influencing you or just giving you that comfort and support when you start venting negative things and spouting negative things. And they say, yeah, you're right. You're right. That is like that. That's what you do not want. What you actually would want is for someone to say, well, why are you looking at it that way? Well, you're in control of that. You can change that if you want to. When we're complaining and when we're venting, we're looking for affirmation in what we're saying. So if like misery love company, I know you've heard that before. If we're complaining about our boss, we want our best friend or our spouse or our brother, sister, or mother. We want them to say, yeah, your boss sucks. Your boss is a jerk. That's what we want. That'll make us feel better because of that affirmation. But sometimes it's better for you to hear that other person say to you, well, why did you do what you did? Maybe it's you got that result because of what you did. Now, that makes us uncomfortable. That makes us say, well, you're not really in my corner, are you? But sometimes that's what we need to hear. We need to hear someone tell us the truth and say, actually, it's you that's the problem in this story you're telling me. I have a really close friend, and we keep it 100 with each other. Like if we're saying something to one another and we're venting and we're saying, hey, this happened to me the other day. Tell me what you think. If one of us is out of bounds, we'll tell each other. We'll say, well, why did you do that? Well, maybe you brought this on yourself. And we'll just keep it 100. Those are the kind of friends that you really need in your life. You don't need people that's just going to give you affirmation on everything that you're venting and saying. Because how healthy is that? How productive and useful is that? It's just going to make you feel better. Do you want to feel better or do you want to grow? Hopefully you want to actually get better instead of just feel better. Okay. So yeah, like attracts like, not opposites attract. Let's go into our last segment of the day, which is fatherless and famous. Here we like to discuss famous and maybe not so famous people who grew up without a father figure in the home. Today's episode, Fatherless and Famous, is Marilyn Monroe. This one caught me by surprise. I did not know she grew up without a father figure in the household. Now, going over this one, this was a little different in one instance. Most of the people that I have covered on this channel as far as fatherless and famous are concerned, the father is normally in the life of the child for the first year or so, and then they disappear. This one is unique because the father, Charles, who got Marilyn's mother pregnant, Gladys, he went out of the picture before Marilyn was even born. Never came back in her life, even after she got famous. This one is rare. I mean, normally people come back, the father come back into the life of the famous person trying to ask for a handout or something like that. He never did that. And he left out of her life before she was even born. And that was also a rare instance right there. Marilyn Monroe's mother, Gladys, was a film cutter in Hollywood, and Marilyn was born in Los Angeles. And her mother had some struggles with mental illness. So she had that good job as a film cutter, making some pretty good money. But because of her mental illness and her having these episodes and breakdowns, she ended up losing that job and started kind of hopping around, taking smaller jobs like housekeeping and things that she could do. But she always had this issue with mental health, and this affected how she was able to raise Marilyn Monroe. So at the age of 19, Norma Jane, later became Marilyn Monroe, was a parachute packer. And she was just, doing her job during the war. And a photographer took pictures of women working jobs, which was not a common occurrence back then. But because of the war, all the men off the war, women started to take up jobs. And a photographer snapped a picture of Marilyn Monroe while she was working. And that picture later got the attention of movie scouts and talent scouts, etc. So they found her, they discovered her, sent her to acting school, charm classes, etc. And she got her first acting gig, did very well. So she was not an overnight star like some would probably assume, because she was such a big iconic movie star. Now, there was only one time that she really spoke about not having a father. She just made the comment that I was born without a dad, and obviously it affected her in a negative way. And it was an emotional thing for her to not have a father figure in her house. So she would cling onto other male role models like directors and mentors. Marilyn Monroe did want to have kids of her own, but she was never able to carry a child through the full term. She had 3 miscarriages, that's on record, and she could never carry a child through the full term. So unfortunately, she was never able to be a parent herself. She did speak several times about how she wished she had a daughter to love and to pour her love into, but she just never had that dream come true. Now, let's talk a little bit about Marilyn's estate when she passed away. She didn't really have a large estate, and that actually surprised me. I thought that she would have had a larger estate. Her estate was $200,000 when she passed away in 1962, and that translates to around $2 million. And for such a really big star, you would think, she would have been a little bit more successful. But she was not a saver. She was a spender. She spent all of her money on gifts for her friends, on clothes, on material things that really had no value. So I think this is it's unfortunate that she didn't have much when she passed away. But this is a common occurrence with people that don't understand money. It doesn't matter if you're a superstar or a big athlete or a famous person. If you don't understand financial literacy, then you're not really going to preserve or grow your money. You're going to use those first two reasons for having money, which is paying bills and buying things. And obviously, Marilyn Monroe in this case bought things. She bought a lot of things because bills wasn't an issue. She had money for that, but she never put money to the side to make more money. Therefore, she never grew the money that she had. She would just spend it. And she made around $100,000 per film. So she was making some money. She just didn't put her money to use. So let that be a lesson for everyone watching. Put your money to use and make your money grow for you. Make it work for you. Okay, so that will do it for our episode today. Thank you for joining. Please leave your comments if you have any. Share your story. I'm always interested in hearing your story about growing up in a fatherless household. Go ahead and subscribe and like this video if you found any value. I'd really appreciate that. And thanks for joining. I'll see you next time.